Welcome back to Split Decision, your weekly podcast for everything UFC. This week on episode 8, we're going to be recapping UFC Nashville. We're going to give you a preview for UFC Vegas 78. From there, we're going to go on to our top 5 riskiest gambles and finish everything up with MMA news. So let's go!
Alright, so let's start with recapping UFC Nashville from this past weekend. Main event, Corey Sandhagen, Rob Font. This was a Corey Sandhagen domination, kinda, but it was not the kind of domination we expected. Corey Sandhagen came in. He's known as a creative and elite striker. And he came in and he, for lack of a better term, kind of wrestle-fucked Rob Font.
Yeah, I always like that term, wrestle fuck. My mom said we need to stop using it. I'll say that.
I respect your mom, but that kind of makes me want to use it more.
Yeah, I told her, but there's no chance. So anyway, he did. He absolutely dominated this fight. I think he proved here that he can wrestle with the best of them in the division. But if you know anything about Sandhagen, we both do, we've also seen that he's smart. You know, he thinks about what he's going into when he fights.
He's very intentional and he's very cerebral.
Right. Now, this was a kind of short notice replacement. You know, he was supposed to face Omar Nurmagomedov. So I totally appreciate him coming into the fight with.
You can tell he was prepared for an elite wrestler.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Everybody's talking shit. I appreciate this.
I respect it because it's like I got another level to my game. Y'all already know what else I can do. I have another level to my game, and it kind of makes you future opponents. I mean, that's got to be in your mind that this dude you can't. If you're Aljo or Henry Cejudo and you fight Sandhagen, you don't necessarily just go out there and dominate him on the ground.
Right. You can't count his wrestling out.
If you're a guy that isn't good at wrestling, now if you fight Sandhagen, you're like, all right, this dude can just take me down.
Right.
So. Honestly, I'm very impressed with Sandhagen. I know he got a lot of slack for it, but I think his stock only went up.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, he won this fight 50-45 by unanimous decision, but he won that with identical scorecards, 50-45. That's scoring every single round in his favor.
By all three judges.
That shows you what a dominant performance it was, and I think we see a title shot in Sandhagen's future.
I also love that he dominated and frustrated Rob Font so much. I think it was in like the 4th round. Rob Font tried to become a wrestler and tried to take him down, do his own game.
Yeah.
And Corey Sandhagen just kind of stuffed it pretty easily and was just like, nah, this is what I'm doing to you. So overall, just a dominant performance from Sandhagen. I agree with you. I think he should probably fight for the title next, winner of Aljo, Sean O'Malley.
In our co-main event, there was a strawweight bout featuring Tatiana Suarez and Jessica Andrade. Now, after almost a 3-year hiatus, Tatiana Suarez came back in February, securing a rear naked choke in the 2nd round.
Gilly.
Sorry. Yeah. I'm sorry. 2nd round Gilly. And she did the same in this, so that's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, repeat performance, and this time against a bigger name.
Yeah, Andrade, even though she's kind of lost, now 3 in a row, she came into the fight losing 2 in a row. You know, it's kind of up in the air what Andrade's going to do. She's obviously not ready to retire, but this is 3 straight losses. 3 straight finishes.
Yeah, all 3 finishes, too. This is her 4th fight in this year, though, so she might just need to take 6 months, 8 months off.
Work on her OnlyFans.
Kind of regroup. Don't worry. Stop the OnlyFans.
Yeah, I don't ever want to see that heinous crime against humanity again.
But Suarez, this was another impressive performance from her. She still kind of reestablished herself as one of the best women 115 fighters.
Yeah, I agree. Honestly, moving her to a perfect 10-0 after, finishing Andrade, I think it shows in this division that she's here to compete. She's not going away.
Yeah, she's right at the top of the division right now. I think she probably has like 1, maybe 2 fights, and then she gets a title shot. And I honestly...
Yeah, I mean,
she might be favored to beat anybody in the division.
Look, with her size, She's bigger than most women at strawweight. With her size, I think she can definitely, pour on those extra punches, and with her grappling prowess as well.
Yeah, solid ground game.
I mean,
Has power on the feet too, so it's like
sky's the limit.
she's very well rounded.
I think in the next, you know what, mark this for me. The next 12 to 18 months, we see Tatiana Suarez, UFC champion of the strawweight division.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree with that. I wouldn't be opposed to that prediction either. All right, so the third fight we're going to cover from UFC Nashville, Dustin Jacoby, Kennedy Nzechukwu. Sorry if I got that wrong.
That's pretty good.
This fight did not go how I expected. What do you think about this fight?
Well, I think it went how I expected. Dustin Jacoby knocked Kennedy Nzechukwu out just under 90 seconds into the fight.
Yeah, I mean, Kennedy came in. He had 3 straight wins, all of them finishes, so I thought he was going to continue that.
Kind of coupled with Jacoby's 2 losses. I'm sorry if you were about to say that.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. And Jacoby came in with 2 losses, so I thought it was 2 careers heading in different directions. But, man, Jacoby, this is a good performance from Jacoby.
Yeah, Kennedy really, I picked Jacoby for the fight, and you had Kennedy, but with Kennedy walking out with kind of that prowess, that power up front, he walked out kind of fast and then just got caught almost immediately.
Well, it kind of shows you at these big weight classes, they fought at light heavyweight 205. Like, you can be I'm not going to say he's a better fighter, but, like, you can't mess around.
Kind of like on paper, you could be the better fighter.
Exactly. On paper, you can be the better fighter. You can have everything going your way, but if 1 second of you being reckless, these guys can hurt you.
Right.
Any of the guys can hurt you if they touch you.
Right. Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened here in Jacoby. What a performance from him. Honestly, may have saved his UFC career. 3 straight losses. A lot of times.
Yeah. The only people I know who can go more than 3 straight losses is somebody like Tony Ferguson.
Yeah, you have to have something established already to survive 3 straight losses. So good win from Jacoby. Very impressive.
Ended his 2-fight losing streak and also ended Kennedy's 3-fight winning streak. So, just goes to show you, can't ever count anybody out. In a featherweight matchup, Diego Lopez fought Gavin Tucker in what I could assume would be a fight between a bad tattoo and a bad nickname.
Governor versus the, what does his tattoo say?
Man, it's something about believe, but it's not even about the message, it's about the font.
Yeah, the font is like a weird, like, horror movie font.
Right, it's like a low-budget horror flick.
It's such a bad font, it's hard to read what it actually says.
Yeah.
Like, you have to concentrate.
I'm sorry to kind of push, my thoughts on that for it. But this, either way, was a quick bout. Diego Lopez versus Gavin Tucker really showed the beginning of the first round. Gavin Tucker shooting a takedown. Diego Lopez countering said takedown. Grabbing an arm triangle. And finishing it just over 90 seconds into the first.
Yeah, and this was Lopez. It was an impressive performance. His first UFC victory, so that's got to be sweet for him. He's only 28. This was Tucker's first fight in over 2 years. And, I don't want to be mean, but it kind of looked like it. He just lost to the younger, fresher guy. It seemed like watching that. This is a nice win for Lopez. Like I said, it's his first UFC win, so it kind of establishes him in the UFC. He can move on from here, despite the horrible tattoo. I'm not sure where Tucker goes from here.
Yeah, they had a brief halt due to a low blow, but from there, honestly, that's what made the fight go longer. If Tucker would have shot earlier, I think Lopez would have gotten the triangle earlier.
What's tough for Tucker is his fight in March of 2021, his last fight before this. He got KO'd in 22 seconds. And then he comes and loses first round submission in this. That's just tough. That's why I said I'm not sure where he goes from here. Because this is only his 3rd career loss.
Well, I'm sure the governor will find a way.
All right, so the next fight on the card was Tanner Boser, the Bulldozer, versus Alexa Kamur. Both guys came in with 2-fight losing streaks.
You got to think that's why these matchups are made, right?
This is actually good matchmaking because it's kind of like who are we not going to pay anymore?
Who do we need to kick out of the roster?
Oh, Tanner Boser. This was an impressive performance from him, though. He came in, like I said, 2-fight losing streak. He righted his wrong. He kind of stabilized his career. He had a unanimous decision win in this. Kamur, this was his first fight since June of 21, so this is another fighter that had a very long 2+ year layoff, and it kind of looked like it, honestly.
Yeah, a little rusty.
Little rusty. He was fighting an older guy, Bozer, and Bozer he looked like the better fighter. This is 3 straight losses for Kamur now after starting his career 6-0, so he's 6-3. So his confidence has got to be hurting right now. I'm not sure where he goes from here, but Bozer, this was a much needed win.
Right, I agree. A definite dominant performance from Bozer. He led out in all 3 rounds, giving a continuous attack, stopping Kamur's counters, consistently landing, body shots, punches, elbows. He really did everything it took to truly win this fight. Like you said, 30-27, all 3 judges' scorecards. He won by unanimous decision. I mean, this was a really good fight, especially with careers, potentially going in 2 different ways. Kamur could be losing his spot on the UFC roster.
It was almost a fight of who wants to stay in the UFC.
And Bozer could be gaining his, at least, not his next contract, but gaining his next ability to fight on the UFC card. It really showed, Bozer's attention to trying to work on it. He did, face some adversity, throughout his career. He got beat bad the last 2 fights out. So it's good to see a guy coming up from that.
Yes, a solid win from Bozer. Good way to kind of put the brakes on the losing streak, kind of get stability back in your career.
Ignacio Bahamondes versus Ludovic Klein was the first fight of the main card of UFC Nashville. Beginning of the fight, Klein wobbled Bahamondes, forcing a lot of defense. And I think that spot in the entire fight was what lost Bahamondes' momentum from the last 3.
Yeah, sometimes you get wobbled. I mean, we're not fighters.
I'd get wobbled if a fighter looked at me.
I could only imagine you get wobbled early. That's going to affect you the rest of the fight.
And listen, Klein, he played smart from there. He leaned heavily on his abilities here. He got a takedown in every round. He forced control. He got, top guard. He got damage while on the ground.
Like we said about Corey Sandhagen having a very smart, cerebral, deliberate plan, it seemed like Klein had that too in this fight. Very smart fight. He came out to win. He had a game plan. He followed it. Overall, just a very impressive performance from Klein. This improves him to 4 straight fights without a loss. He does have a draw in there, so 3 wins.
I was going to say, 3 wins, 1 draw?
3 wins, 1 draw, but regardless, that's 4 straight fights without a loss.
Hey, I got a draw in the bets. We're counting that for me. We got to count it for him.
That ends Bahamondes' 3-fight winning streak. So there's 2 guys kind of hot coming in, and it was makes Klein's performance even more impressive.
Yeah, he really showcased his skills. Despite a late knee bar attempt from Bahamondes, Klein won with a really, truly dominant performance. Unanimous decision. The judges' scorecards were 30-27, 29-28, and 29-28. I think that's wholeheartedly deserved.
I agree. And Klein also, we didn't even talk about this. He's 5'8", Bahamondes 6'1", so there was a huge height and reach advantage for Bahamondes, and Klein still, I guess that kind of plays into why he took him down and chose the ground game.
It's a smart game plan coming in, and it really shows that, even if you're not as big as the next guy, that's why weight classes exist. All right, to kick off a little recap of last week's picks and bets. I had a pretty good week. Christian, what'd you do overall? Not revealing too much information, but just how you feeling?
What you talking, picks or bets?
Just overall, what's your emotion?
It was a tough card. A lot of fighters we're not 100% familiar with. I was all right. I started off very bad. I think I started off 1-3 on the card. Won the last 2 fights with Sandhagen and Suarez. So I kind of saved it at 3-3 with my picks. Went 2-1 on bets. Had the Bozer money line correct, Tanner Bozer. I had the under Kennedy versus Jacoby. Now I picked Kennedy in the fight, but the bet was the under, and the under hit with Jacoby winning.
Yeah, I think he won. What did we say earlier? Won in like a minute and
Yeah,
30,
so I'll
90
take
seconds,
that.
something like that.
And then the one bet I got wrong was the Tucker money line, the Gavin Tucker money line, who lost to Diego Lopez.
Oh, nice.
So 2-1 bets, 3-3 picks. Bets I'm not mad about. I'll take that every week. Picks, I wish I did better.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Honestly, you still did 50% for picks. So
Yeah,
it's,
50% ain't shit though.
it's not the worst thing I've ever seen. I mean, look at Bucky. He's negative right now.
I was 1-3, so
we're gonna put him back in a commission for the I think UFC 292. Trying to give him a break. Go back into some picks there.
let him regroup, do a little homework.
Right. I keep trying to get that little shit to watch some videos, and he won't. Maybe one day we'll get my baby to make a pick or something once he can start moving around.
Once he can hold his head up.
So
how'd you do bets and picks?
For me this week, bets. Honestly, it's kind of like usual. For bets, I did 2-1. I got Klein versus Bahamondes.
You're kind
over.
of Mr. 2-1, huh? You seem to go 2-1 a lot.
So I've gone 2-1 every week, but 1 week. The only week I didn't go 2-1 was when I refused to pick a replacement bet for a canceled fight.
Well, no, that was a eye poke. Was a no contest.
Oh, you're
that
right.
Was
You're
Justin
right.
Tafa, Austin Lane fight.
Sorry, I've had a bit of a run here where I've just so happened to put bets on fights that have been canceled almost every week when we've been doing it. But I got Klein versus Bahamondes over. I got Dustin Jacoby money line. My only loss for the bets were Andrade versus Suarez over, where second round rear naked choke or second round guillotine ended that fight. But overall, it was good for me. I went 2-1 on bets. I went 5-1 on picks, only getting the first fight of the entire main card wrong.
Yeah, so you did awesome on picks.
So for bets, that moves Christian to 14-7, 14 right, 7 wrong at 67%.
So I mean that's pretty much averaging 2-1 every week.
Yeah, you're calling me 2-1, but you were actually Mr. 2-1. I'm slightly worse because I did have the eye poke no contest. 12-8-1 gives me a 60% win percentage. I'm still hoping for my 3-0 week to come soon and kind of raise that a little bit. But for picks, Christian, you're still looking pretty good. 28-20 for a 58% win percentage.
I'm six behind you though.
I've been on fire recently, brother. I did 5-1 this week, 6-2 last week. I'm 34-14, hitting at 70% on all picks across the board. I admit it's pretty good, but I'm a humble guy, so I'm gonna just keep rocking and rolling with my research, with my picks as they go.
So humble. Okay, so let's move on to our preview of UFC Vegas 78 this weekend. We're going to take a look at the full main card, go over each fight, give our picks, give our bets. The first fight we're going to take a look at, Josh Fremd versus Jamie Pickett. Josh Fremd comes in with a 10-4 record overall. He is 1-2 in the UFC, but in his last fight in March, he got his first UFC win. Jamie Pickett comes in. He has fought a few times in the UFC, but he's 2-5 in the UFC with 3 straight losses. His last loss, I'm sure we all remember, was Bo Nickal's official UFC debut, where Bo Nickal beat him pretty quickly in the first round. Pickett is 13-9 overall, so he doesn't have a great record. How do you think this fight goes, Alex?
So honestly, for this one, Fremd being a major favorite, minus 320 on the card. He's got 4 KOs, 4 submissions, 2 decision victories, compared to Pickett's 9 KOs, 4 decisions. I think, honestly, he's a more well-rounded fighter here. I think he's going to not piece him up. I don't think it's going to be a dominant performance in the terms of, like, Pickett's not going to be able to do anything. But I think Josh Fremd is going to definitely come back from his couple losses against Gore.
Yeah, but he won his last fight. He
did win against Dumas. You're right. He did win, and I think that's kind of why he's on his comeback. I think with that, he has options to win. I think he's a better fighter overall.
He came in, he started his UFC tough. 2 straight losses after coming in the UFC at 10-2 is always tough. But as you said, as we both said, his last fight got the guillotine win in the second round. Given that Pickett has lost 4 times by submission,
I think I
Fremd
picked
is a
Fremd here.
submission. He can knock you out. He can submit you, go to decision. I think Fremd gets a submission win in this. I think it's probably in like the second round. I think he does that again. But I agree with you. My pick for this fight is Josh Fremd. He is a big favorite. Maybe not big, but he's a big favorite.
Big enough.
Minus 340 money line. Jamie Pickett plus 265. So I got Josh Fremd winning the fight.
And another fight with fighters either going in the same direction or one fighter looking for a big come up. We have AJ Dobson versus Tafon Dadan Nchukui. So Dobson really impressed in the Contender Series with his round 1 victory, but he just hasn't won in the UFC at all, actually. And we were talking, before recording, one of the only ways to get a contract from the Contender Series is to, do something crazy, get a
First
good
round
knockout.
finishes help, and he got a first round rear naked choke. So that's why he got signed. But as you said, he's 0-2 in the UFC. He hasn't won yet.
So both guys here just really look to right the ship, right?
AJ Dobson has never been finished. Before he got to the UFC, he was known as like a first, and including in the Contender Series, he was finishing guys first round. Since then, he's had 2 decision losses. Dadan, he comes in 2-3 in the UFC. He's also lost 2 in a row, 3 out of his last 4. His last 2 losses, he's been KO'd twice too, so that's concerning. And he hasn't been able to get a finish in the UFC.
That was actually what I was about to touch on. Dadan has only won in the UFC by decision. So with kind of all of that, he's going to face some adversity here. He is listed as the favorite. And I do believe that I'm actually going to lock in Tafon Nchukui as my pick and my first bet of the night.
See, I'm going opposite of you. I'm taking AJ Dobson. I think he's going to come out, get the win, and I'm actually taking my first bet of the night, AJ Dobson money line.
Oh, so we'll actually be clashing here. So nobody's going perfect this week.
Well, we could still go perfect. We can't both go perfect.
Oh, that's true. Fair enough.
All right, so the next fight we're going to cover from UFC Vegas 78, Polyana Viana, Yasmin Lucindo. Lucindo comes in a minus 190 favorite compared to Polyana plus 160 underdog. 13-5 for Polyana, 14-5 for Lucindo. Lucindo comes in 1-1 in the UFC. Both of them are 500 fighters. Polyana 4-4 in the UFC, but she has won 3 out of her last 4.
And I will say, for Polyana specifically, out of her last 4, her only loss is to Tabitha Ritchie. So
who we both admire.
Love. I'll go as far as to say is love.
We both love Baby Shark. Polyana,
Sorry.
She has a lot in her career, a lot of armbar finishes. She's
also
lost a couple times by the armbar. So watch out for the armbar in this fight.
So what do you think is actually going to happen here?
I think Lucindo is going to win by decision. I think both are probably pretty equal on the ground. I think Lucindo's going to hit her a little bit more on the feet. So I'm going to take, in the battle of the 2 Brazilian female fighters, I'm going to take Lucindo. I will point out there's a big age gap between these two. Yasmin Lucindo, 21. Polyana is 31.
All right. Well, listen. Regardless of anything you just said, my second bet of the night is actually the over on this fight. I think this one's actually going to go to the distance. I
agreed with that. I thought that too. I think Lucindo wins by decision.
Right, but my pick is the differ. Sorry, I was just trying to say my second bet and then go with the pick after. So I guess to differ, my pick is Polyana Viana, but my second bet of the night, which to, I guess, agree with you, if you want to be all PC, I'm going to say Viana Lucindo over but Viana wins because you're not going to beat me.
I
Fair
have one
enough.
more thing to throw out there that's going to make us both feel old. I mentioned Lucinda is 21. She
Can
was
you
born
do
in
something for me?
2002.
All right, well, I got to quit this podcast now. Just kidding. And now debuting in light heavyweight, we have Chris Dukaus versus Khalil the Warhorse Roundtree. Khalil Roundtree here looks to add to his win streak after defeating Dustin Jacoby, who just won last weekend. He beat him by split decision.
And he's won 3 in a row.
I don't think we can expect a single submission attempt on this entire fight, seeing as neither one of these guys have either.
I agree with that, but I also don't think this fight goes to the scorecard because neither of these guys are real big decision fighters either. These guys go in there and swing.
Right. So, one weird fact for Chris Dukaus is he's been KO'd each of his last 3 times out. That's kind of leaning me to...
Those were at heavyweight, though, so you got to give him that. He is moving down, so we'll see how he fights.
I agree.
And honestly, those 3 losses, Rosenstrike, Curtis Blades,
And
Derek
Lewis. Yeah.
So it's like, those are 3 pretty big dudes.
Correct. But in the same token, I'm not willing to change like my entire, thought process on this guy.
I agree.
I'm going to pick Khalil Roundtree as just my pick of the night. No bets, nothing fancy. Khalil Roundtree to win the fight.
I agree with you. I'm picking Roundtree. And my second bet of the night, the odds aren't out yet, but this is my second bet. I have Roundtree winning by KO.
Oh, so definitely no submission attempts here.
Definitely no submissions, as you said. I also don't think it goes to the scorecard. I'm taking Khalil Roundtree, KO, locking it as my second bet of the night. All right, so let's jump to the co-main event of the evening. Killer Cub Swanson, the 39-year-old vet, versus Mean Hakeem Dawodu. How do you say his last name?
Dawodu?
Dawodu. I think it's Dawodu.
Let's go with that.
Hakeem comes in 13-3, 1 draw. He has lost 2 out of his last 3. Cub Swanson also lost 2 out of his last 3. He is a UFC veteran. I don't want to say well past his prime, but well past his prime.
I was going to say wily vet.
A wily vet. He's 7 years older than Hakeem, 39 compared to 32. The American versus the Canadian. How do you see this fight going?
Did you say both fighters are coming off a loss?
Both fighters coming off a loss. Both have lost 2 out of their last 3 as well.
Right. So it's it's both guys trying to right the ship. Cub trying to do it towards the end of his career.
I feel like Cub is 1 good win away from retiring. I feel like that's what he's waiting for.
That kind of sucks, man. I mean, to just go out there hunting for a win.
It's a dangerous
so you can
game
leave.
to play. Not everybody can end their career like Robbie Lawler
or Donald Cerrone. There's a bunch.
But
on this fight, honestly, I think either guy could win. Cub Swanson's a wily vet that always finds a way, or at least historically has always found a way. Dawodu is going down to featherweight here, so I think he's going to add a little bit of power, which might lean him towards a little KO ability, if you will. And he's never really focused on submission. He's been focused on the KO decision route. Obviously nobody focuses on a decision, but it's obvious that he's been focusing on the KO. He's gone about 50-50. He's gone 7 KOs, 6 decisions in that time. Honestly, I think Hakeem Dawodu is going to win the fight. I don't think Cub Killer Swanson gets his swan song into the sunset this time.
I like that. I think it's Killer Cub. I don't think it's Cub Killer.
I know. I had to go. I couldn't pause, otherwise it was going to sound worse.
One interesting thing is, in his last 4 fights, Cub has not gone to the scorecards, while Hakeem has gone to the scorecards in his last 5 fights. So that's something interesting.
Albeit
note about the fight.
In a higher weight class for Hakeem.
I'm also going with Hakeem. I'm going with Mean Hakeem. I think I think youth just wins. I think he's the fresher fighter. I'm going with Hakeem.
And in the famous words of Bruce Buffer, we're going to go on to the main event.
I've never heard him say we're going to go on to the main event.
Yeah, but we're going to go on to the main event. All right. We're going to restart that. And now on to the main event. We got Vicente Luque, the Silent Assassin.
I was about to say I like that nickname.
That is a pretty cool one. Versus Raphael, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. Okay, I just made that up. Sorry. Rafael dos Anjos. So Vicente Luque comes in here with a record of 21-9, 11 KOs, 8 submissions, 2 decisions, 1 KO loss, 2 submission losses, and 6 decision losses, with 1 draw. Also featuring a recent brain bleed to Jeff Neal.
Yeah, he's lost his last 2 fights, and his last win was August of 21, so it's been exactly 2 years, which is hard to believe. So it's been a little while for Vicente. While RDA comes in, he's won 3 out of his last 4. He's a 5-round vet. Most of his last probably like 10 fights have been 5 rounds. He's been a main event guy, so he's used to going the 5-round, the longer fights. So I think stamina is going to play a huge factor in this fight, and I think that's going to favor RDA.
Yeah, I don't agree with you. Well, I mean, it's a very valid point. Luque hasn't been in a whole bunch of main events in the past couple years.
I mean, going 2 rounds.
RDA has a whole bunch of stamina. You're right. Yeah, I just don't think it comes to that. I think we take Vicente Luque as the winner here. I don't think it takes nearly that much to finish RDA. I think the camp is going to be better for Luque. And honestly, my last bet of the night, I know it's the main card, so I kind of had to place it at some point. But my last bet of the night's Luque money line.
See, we are way off on this one. I'm taking RDA. I think RDA kind of schools Luque. Like I said, Luque hasn't won in 2 years. Brain bleed from his last fight. I'm not sure if he should even still be out there. RDA, he's an older guy, but he's won 3 out of his last 4. His only loss was a 5th-round loss. So, I mean, he lasted 4+ rounds. I think RDA goes out there. I think he gets the win. I think it's a decision win. And my last bet of the night is RDA money line. So we are opposite 2 bets this week, which is interesting. I think that's the first time that's happened.
Yeah, seeing as we don't talk about it, beforehand, I like going against you. I never want you to lose any money, but in this case,
I want you to lose money.
Yeah, honestly, I think you're going to go down as quick as Dos Anjos does.
Yeah, because Vicente Luque does that all the time. All right, so let's move on to our top 5 of the week.
Why are you screaming, brother?
We're keeping with the themes, and this week, this was a hard one to pick because it's UFC Vegas 78, Apex card. So it's kind of hard to pick like a theme.
Yeah, it's almost like there's been 78, 77 before this one.
But we figured it out. So we're going to go top 5 riskiest gamble/bets. And again, just like last week, we're leaving this wide open so we can go any kind of way. And I think we pretty much covered all bases.
I like mine. I don't really care about yours.
So let's start off with number 5. Alex, what is your number 5 riskiest gamble/bet?
So I don't know how to word this like in the shortest way possible for a graphic.
Y'all better buckle in, folks. It's going to be a while.
As Caitlyn Jenner would say, buckle up, buckaroo. My number 5 is if you're at a roulette table and you're just betting on a solid number. If you picture you go to roulette table and you bet on 15.
While I agree with your pick. It's a good pick. How in any way is that hard to explain?
No, I'm saying for a graphic, like wording wise, like the amount of words we have. It's not hard
roulette
to explain.
Number.
Oh yeah, there you go. Well, I'm dumb. What's your number 5?
My number 5. So this one I gotta set a setting. I gotta give you a setting.
Oh, and I'm dumb. Okay.
Well, listen to Mister. I don't know how to explain roulette number. My number 5 is picture you're in high school, college, You have an assignment or a test the next day.
I've been there.
It's about 8 o'clock.
PM or AM?
8 o'clock p.m.
Okay.
And you know you have this test 10 a.m. project due the next day. More test.
All right.
You convince yourself at 8 p.m. I'm going to stay up tonight, do my own thing, have fun. Not necessarily go out or anything, but just like watch TV, not study.
Well, that is an age-old mistake, sir.
And I'm going to wake up at 6 a.m. tomorrow, and I'm going to study, and I'm going to cram. It never works out. It rarely works out because it is a gamble. Because you do have that 1 or 2 times it works out, so it gives you the confidence to keep doing it. More times than not, it does not work out. So that was my number 5. I think it's something, if you went to college kind of half-assed like most people do in America, I think that's a very relatable thing.
Yeah, that's a solid. What do you call that exactly?
I would say the biggest. So my number 5 gamble, riskiest gamble, is waking up to study. Slash procrastinate.
Last minute studying.
Last minute studying.
Okay, yeah, I like that as a number 5.
What do you have for number 4?
So my number 4, and I think this plays kind of very well into recent times, especially. I guess it can only play into recent times, as seeing as it hasn't existed until recently, is cryptocurrency.
Ooh, that is a good one.
I think it's a super risky gamble because, well, number 1, it's not even real.
It's not real. It's all about timing.
It's essentially like, is it software? Is it if you can just get a faster computer than the next guy, you're a millionaire? I don't know.
I understand the concept of a decentralized currency, but
the way they mine
it doesn't work.
Yeah, I just don't get it. So my number 4 is cryptocurrency.
That's a good one because it's a good gamble because it could work out for you. It's all about timing, but more times than not, you just end up losing money.
What's your number 4?
My number 4, so I went back and forth with this. My number 4 is lying on your resume.
Can that actually be found out?
So I'm not talking about lying as in like saying you have a degree or not. I'm talking about more skills. Like you put our resume / job application. Well, I'm proficient. I'm very good in Excel. And then you get there first day and they're asking you to do some complicated Excel worksheet and you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Okay.
So Excel, coding, anything like that, lying on your resume about your skills, that could get you bad first impression.
While I actually back you up on that being a solid pick, the example you gave is more or less piss poor in my opinion. I think for specifically Excel, every single thing is Googleable.
While I'll agree, but coding, you still have to know how to use Excel to put the Google information to use.
You're right. Now you did back it with coding and more in-depth stuff.
Yeah, I know Java, and they're like, okay, write some code, and you're like, oh shit.
Oh, well,
you about that. Actually write code.
Yeah, exactly. You have to you have
C++.
I was about to say you have to get him some C++ shit. So I like that. How would you say that? It's what'd you say again?
I said lying on your resume / job application.
Yeah, I like that. Now I wonder if you change what your degree is, if that's as big of a deal as what you just said. Say you have a degree in marketing and you just change it to a degree in management or something. Does it really matter?
I think there's a way for them to find out, but I don't think most companies would.
I think it would matter on
but I do think
centralized job, like a doctor, lawyer, something where the degree matters.
Professional degree. But I do think you could probably get away with it, but if you ever did get caught, you'd probably be fired automatically.
Depending on the work you do.
Agreed. What do you have for number 3?
So my number 3 is, I think it's the end-all be-all of a casual bettor. My number 3 is parlays.
Ooh.
I consider myself a solid gambler. I think anybody who ever gambles considers themselves a solid gambler.
That's the problem.
You're not going to gamble if you're bad at it in your mind. But I think that, in all betting advice, they say don't go with parlays. Bet it straight up.
You're not a real bettor if you do parlays.
Right. And that holds true. I would much rather place 2 bets at half. If I'm placing a $10 total bet, I would rather place $5 on each leg of that parlay and have the opportunity to maybe go even or win both, than potentially be left with the fact that, when one leg doesn't hit, I lose it all.
So your pick is what, parlays?
Parlays is a risk. Now, my number 3 riskiest gamble.
I like that. So my number 3, this is one, it speaks to, both me and you have car sales experience, so it speaks to, I think this is really like a salesman experience, but any job where you go out for lunch, it could happen. My number 3 is drinking at lunch while you're on the job.
Oh, you're talking about a food hoon.
So I'm talking about you got an hour lunch break. I'm going to go to the Chili's.
You go to
right
the walk-ons. You go to the Twin Peaks. You grab a couple.
Sit at the bar.
Couple draft beers at lunch.
Couple draft beers with a burger and fries.
Mm.
You're feeling great. And there's that point, you're about 45 minutes in, you're about to have to leave, where you contemplate risking it all and just being like, fuck this place. I think most people don't do it, but everybody knows that feeling of like, I'm not going back. So I think that's the gamble in and of itself, plus the fact that you could get caught, where they could smell alcohol in your breath, somebody could see you drinking beer at lunch. But I think it's a good gamble because the reward is great. The punishment, if you get caught, could also be great.
Right, it's risky on both ends. It's risky you get caught. It's risky driving back from the restaurant. It's risky going to work for the rest of the day trying to peddle whatever you're peddling to those guys.
Normal, and there's that first moment where you walk back into the office.
And you're kind of giggly.
Those first 5 or 10 minutes, and you're just like, oh shit.
Yeah,
shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, you're on a full rush. No stopping you. But honestly, in that moment, you might be the most dangerous predator in North America.
What kind of predator are you talking about?
Sexual predator.
Oh my goodness. What do you have for your number 2? Let's move on from that as quickly as possible.
Okay, well, keeping on with the same thing of sexual predators. Lord.
Deshaun Watson.
Right, there we go. We're going to go with my number 2 of late night texts.
Oh.
So we're going to go with the risky text. You get a little too drunk. You miss at the bar. You find an ex or an old fling in the phone, and you send what you can send, hoping they respond. And listen, brother, I'm going to say from first-hand experience, most of the time they don't even text you back.
And that's the worst feeling in the world. The worst feeling is waking up the next day and looking at those and be like, oh my God.
My second best, if you want to consider it this way, is that because of all the failure it ensues, everything's tied to it, there's no escaping a late night risky text.
I like that pick a lot. There was a time in my life when I was probably 23 to 25 where I would go out, I would drink a little bit too much, and I would text damn near every girl on my phone if I struck out at the bar.
At one point in my life, I had, there was a description line on the iPhones that I used to use. I would put woman. I'd be able to search woman and just text those.
I completely relate to that.
En masse, if you will.
So my number 2, I thought about doing the risky text. I had it on my list at first. I ended up scratching it out. My number 2 is also a risky thing, obviously. We're talking about risky gambles.
I would hope it's risky.
My number 2 is a risky fart.
A shart?
It's one of those where...
I guess it could be a shart.
You don't know if it's a shart or not.
Fair enough.
You need the fart. You're in a place where you can't go to the bathroom. You got to let it out. I wouldn't even say there's a 50-50 chance, because it's probably like an 80-20 chance. 80 that it's not a shart. But there's that small chance where there could just be a little bit in there. And then you just shit yourself in front of everybody.
Honestly, while I don't like a shart, it's not the worst thing that's ever happened to me.
A shart is a nightmare for me.
I will say the worst thing that I think has happened in recent times is my kid sharted at school, and I had to go pick him up. Just seeing that embarrassment from an outside looking in perspective was almost as bad as shitting my own pants.
I understand that, but as being somebody that as an adult I have shit my pants
multiple times,
I'm cool with somebody else shitting their pants and me taking care of them, regardless if it's my kid or not.
Yeah, I just felt really bad for it.
So who do you have as your number one, top 5 riskiest gamble / bets?
So my riskiest gamble, my riskiest bet, it's going to go back to that age-old gambling saying, the age-old betting saying, as you never bet on your team, right? My riskiest bet is betting on...
I want you to never bet on my team, though. I want you personally, Alex King, not to bet on my team, but you continue to do so.
Right. I can't help you there. It's all about your team, right?
I do have the best baseball team.
I'll never bet on the Colts. As far as I'd never hope you'd bet on the Saints.
Yeah, that is the only gambling rule I have, a hard gambling rule. I don't bet on my favorite teams.
You never do a parlay. You never do a stat line. You never do anything with your team, specifically because your heart is too in. You know too much about your team. The thrill of the game isn't there. Your emotions are too hung up on the Saints, or too hung up on the Bucks, too hung up on the Jags, too hung up on the Colts. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you need to bet with your least risky bets.
My emotions are too tied to my favorite team, so I can always convince myself, because I always like to convince myself they have a chance to win.
Oh, they're gonna beat the Chiefs. 100%. They can beat Patrick Mahomes.
The Saints, but I'm bad with LSU football.
Right.
I pick them they're going
undefeated.
They're going undefeated this year.
I believe you.
And I'll say that every year.
But I won't put money on it.
Exactly. So I 100%, that's a great pick, a great number one pick.
What's your number one?
My number one pick, I'm going to go back a little bit in the past again. Just as I did before. Picture yourself as a pretty much 13 till however long you lived with your parents. It's late at night. You're trying to get a little action, if you know what I mean. You're either trying to sneak out of the house or you're sneaking into someone else's house,
man,
to not be caught by their parent.
So sneaking in or out?
Sneaking in or out while a teenager, the reward is, I mean, we all know what the reward is. It's probably the best, as a teenager, it's the best thing you could possibly hope for.
Dude, honestly,
the punishment,
I've been caught.
Embarrassment, grounded punishment. I can't imagine. I never got caught, but I can't imagine.
Listen to this. You ready? So, in high school, a girlfriend of mine texted me late at night. I was at home, said, "Hey, can you pick me up from this party? I'm drunk."
So a girl you were talking to?
I was dating.
Okay. That's understandable.
Right. Trust. There was some trust. She said, "Hey, can you pick me up from this party?" Like, sure, got you. Didn't want to ask my dad to leave, after curfew. So I snuck out my window, drove, and this is the God's honest truth. I drove to the party, picked her up, drove her to her home, made sure she was sound in her bed, drove home, walked in my home. My dad was awake on the couch. Immediately knew I snuck out.
So you're trying to be the gentleman, and
I was trying to do the right thing, and
I did do the right thing, and you got in trouble.
I did do the right thing, and I got burnt hard. You want to know what else my dad found out that night after taking my phone?
Oh no, this is getting way beyond my top 5.
My dad found out the first time I had ever had sex.
I had a similar experience, but
it was horrendous.
Yeah,
it was horrendous.
It's the worst.
So I wholeheartedly agree that sneaking out, getting caught sneaking in or out, is probably the riskiest gamble, riskiest bet you could make. I
think we both had pretty good number ones, definitely.
Man, you just gave me some trauma. So we've spoken about it before. and this probably won't be the last time we're going to talk about it. Musk Zuckerberg made the news again talking about their fight. It's like a 50-50 shot to see if this is actually going to happen.
This fight's never going to happen.
So Zuck got on Threads recently, which is in the middle of a lawsuit for Twitter, basically
so nobody
copying
saw it
their
until it
exact
got posted
thing.
to Twitter.
Right, because I'm not getting on Threads to have my Instagram deleted once I delete that. I'm good.
Nobody's on Threads.
So Zuck was asking to confirm the fight for later this month. It may happen.
He said he was ready today.
Yeah, at any point, he said he's ready. But Elon Musk said he needs to have an MRI on his back. He tossed a sumo wrestler.
The doctor said he needed a backiotomy.
Crushed a couple vertebrae. So he said he might have to have back surgery before they can compete. I think the verdict's completely out on whether or not this fight happens.
I'm a big Elon Musk fan, but he's a notorious guy who bites off a little more than he can chew. I don't think this fight's going to happen.
Right. I agree with you there. But they also said that if the fight does happen, it's going to be streamed on X, formerly known as Twitter.
Did you see what Zuck's response was?
What's that?
Maybe we should put it on something a little more reliable.
Ouch.
It was honestly a nice burn.
And the proceeds are going to go to charity. So if this happens, at least, somebody will benefit from it. It's not just going to be to make them money. At least charity in some way, shape, or form will benefit, whether that be the 30% charities or the charities that actually give back to the causes they claim.
Random soapbox.
Yeah, I'll take that. Moving directly on to I don't know about new and I don't know about every week, but it's going to be as often as it's needed. We're going to go with the UFC roster update.
So is this fighters added to the UFC roster?
Yeah, added and dropped.
Okay, that makes sense.
So first, this is going to be kind of a late ad right before UFC Nashville last weekend. Diego Lopez actually got rewarded his contract before the fight. So he'll be continuing on in the featherweight division. Good for him. He's from Brazil. We always love a good Brazilian fighter. There's a bunch of them in the UFC. They stand with, all the things we hope for in a fighter, the class, the poise, grappling, striking, they can do it all. Good to have him here long-term, hopefully. And then from France, we have Morgan Charrier. Is
that a dude or a chick?
That is a guy in the featherweight division. 18-9-1 added to the card. Featherweight as well, so we can expect to see him fight in the next, few weeks to couple months. He's coming off his regional circuit. Once again, 18-9-1, looking to impress in his first UFC fight coming up.
Almost 30 fights coming in the UFC. That's not bad.
Right. And then lastly, for an ad in the UFC, we're going to go with an Italian fighter. Not many of these on the fight cards as of now.
Vittori.
We're going to go with Manolo Zucchini. I apologize if I got your name wrong, although you probably don't speak English anyway. You're 11-3, added in at the lightweight division, so you can kind of tell. I was about to say the same thing. At 11-3 from his regional circuit, you can kind of tell he's going to be a killer.
Any guy on the UFC roster at 155 is a monster.
Right. We only have one drop I want to talk about this week. It's a local guy from our area, from Lafayette, Louisiana. We have Aaron Phillips, 12-5 professional record, fighting out of the bantamweight division at 135 pounds. He fights out of Head Kicks, Louisiana, Lafayette. He was just dropped from the UFC card. We hope to have him back, get another hometown hero in the future at the bantamweight card. Maybe he'll make some changes and see what goes on from there. But that pretty much covers our roster updates for this week. I hope to give you a couple more in the future, and we'll see where we go from there. Hey, can we take a little walk down memory lane?
Let's take a walk.
All right, so 2 years and 1 day ago at UFC 265,
in nearby Houston, Texas.
Houston, Texas. You're right. You know the fight I'm talking about.
H-Town, my hometown.
We're talking about Cyril Gane versus Derek Lewis.
My boy Serial Gone, the Frenchman,
The Cheerio Gone.
versus Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis, Black
Lewis?
Beast,
was-
Houstonite, Texan, American.
This is a big, strange fight for Lewis fans. Obviously, you can Google, see how it went. This is weird because through 2 rounds, Derek Lewis only really had 2 significant strikes.
It was one of those fights. It was his first, not his first, but it was a big chance for him. And I love Derek Lewis, but it kind of seemed like the moment, the pressure and the spotlight may have got to him a little bit, which was unfortunate to see. Cyril Gane, honestly, this was a great performance from him. He became the first Frenchman to win any kind of belt. It was the interim heavyweight belt, but first Frenchman to get a belt. So that in and of itself is impressive as the UFC tries to expand more into Europe.
And when Gane beating Lewis in the 3rd round, with a TKO, it honestly set him up. I know he went on to lose to
John Jones.
John Jones by guillotine this March, like recently, after John Jones' long-awaited return. But it set him up as like the only guy that could really, outside of Ngannou, that could compete against John Jones. So it was a really exciting matchup. Gane fought Ngannou afterwards, lost that fight, then fought
John Jones.
Lost that fight. But we're excited to say, get ready to see Cyril Gane in September of 2023 to get back on track, make a big name for himself. Cyril Gane, look out for him again.
All right, so new segment alert. I think we both talked about it. We wanted to kind of switch things up. We're not getting rid of who it wins, but we want to kind of rotate some new segments in. So we're going to come up with a new one called Dream Matchups. So what this is going to be what dream matchup do you have for the UFC? This could be old UFC fighters versus new UFC fighters. This could be non-fighters versus each other. This could be boxers versus each other. Whatever you want.
Right. So we want everybody's opinion. We want to know who is your dream matchup. You can either text that to 337-414-2202 or email it to splitdecision2023@gmail.com.
Or just DM us.
On any socials. We'll feature this on the pod. Who is
we'll even give you
your
credit.
Dream matchup, Christian?
So my dream matchup, this is a matchup that is, I guess you would say, of the moment.
Probable, maybe even?
Yeah, I mean, there's an offer out there. This weekend we saw Jake Paul and Nate Diaz box each other. And it kind of went how everybody expected. Jake couldn't get Nate out, but Jake has been a boxer. Nate has been an MMA fighter, so Jake won on the scorecards.
Which is a fair fight.
It was a fair fight. I mean...
And it was a good fight. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Complain about it. Everybody wants to see now them go to the octagon. I want to see Nate Diaz, Jake Paul, mostly because I want to see Jake Paul get choked out. I don't know if it'll happen simply because Jake knows if he fights Nate, that's the most likely outcome. But that's my dream matchup. I would love to see that fight happen.
I wholeheartedly agree. I love that matchup. I liked it as a boxing match. I think I'd like it even more as a MMA bout.
Oh, I think it's tons more intriguing as an MMA fight.
I don't see that fight going more than 2 rounds. I mean,
and honestly, I hate to say it, if Jake Paul were to show up, not even win, if he were to show up and be a competitive fight, you would have to give him his props at that point.
Right, I'd be willing to give the guy credit if he'd fight a real fighter in that sport. Stop fighting guys that are
not in
past
their
their prime.
Not in their sports.
Going to a foreign entity to fight is something they've never done before.
So that's my dream matchup. I think you had a dream matchup you wanted to present as well.
I do, and I think this is one that could also happen in the future. Both guys are, of a realistic age. They're in the same weight class. They're not fake. They're real fighters. I think what could happen in the future, and I don't care how it happens, whether it's boxing, MMA, a slap fight. I just want to see these two square off. John Jones versus Francis Ngannou. I think that's the fight of the century.
It was supposed to happen.
It
They
was.
both kind of fumbled it.
Yeah, they
John took too long to get the heavyweight. Francis
found
bounced out
out
of the
he was
UFC.
worth more.
Yeah, honestly, you can't even really blame Francis for it.
And I can't blame John either. I mean, he's had a long run of doing
wants to be
drugs,
ready. Yeah,
having
'cause-
fun, hitting his wife. He's,
moving
as you
past-
said a couple weeks ago, he's a bad motherfucker.
Moving past all that, he's the greatest.
Oh,
He's had the greatest career in the octagon, and if you're going to move up, I don't blame him for wanting to take his time to move up. So you can't really blame both guys for the fight not happening, but I agree with you. That's the fight everybody wants to see. If that fight happened today, it would be one of the biggest UFC pay-per-views of all time. It would rival a Conor McGregor-Khabib fight.
Absolutely. So everybody, let us know in the comments who your dream matchup is.
Thanks for listening to episode 8 of Split Decision. Check us out next week when we recap UFC Vegas 78 and take a look ahead at UFC 292 Sean O'Malley versus Aljamain Sterling for the 135 bantamweight title.
The first alarm clock could only ring at 4 a.m. Like and subscribe to this episode of Split Decision, and check us out at splitdecision.blog, where you'll find our most recent posts, videos, and all the links to our socials.